In athletics, especially distance running, there are two main avenues you can go down to become recognized as one of the best in the world. Some hone their craft to peak perfectly for championship races and to represent their nation at the most competitive stage possible. Others are time trial fiends that will do any and everything to run astoundingly fast times that will cement them as the fastest to ever do it. But then there's the hyper elite, the once-in-a-generation superstars that possess both of these attributes and will bless spectators of the sport for well over a decade as they put a beautiful stranglehold on their genre. Well, that's exactly what this woman is, and her story is a fascinating one as well. Letesenbet Gidey was born in Ethiopia, more specifically, the Tigray region. Very little information exists of her past, but a snippet from an early interview does reveal how she got her start in athletics. At the age of 13, Gidey had supposedly been expelled from school due to her lack of interest towards running during her physical education classes. Eventually, she and the school's headmaster came to a compromise that as long as she ran for the school, she would be able to further pursue her academics. Hesitant to do so, quick success would actually come about with top finishes at regional events, and she would soon pivot towards a sport-specific club within the heart of the Tigray area to capitalize off of her talents further. The earliest documentations of Gidey's success following this move would be in January 2014, where at the second Ethiopian Youth Athletics Championships, she would place third in the 3000 running 9:36, and down the line finished third at the Ethiopian Championships in the 5000. These were marks and placements that would further predict a relatively successful future in the sport, but 2015 in particular showcased brilliancy beyond what Gidey would have expected this early in her career. With no desire to lead this race, Gidey sees no issue staying on the shoulders of the lead runner and waits until a rolling hill section to take the lead with about 600 meters left. Tunnel visioned with 100 meters to go, she almost makes a catastrophic wrong turn behind the cones until she's redirected back on course. And despite such a crucial hiccup, Gidey becomes the World Junior Cross-Country Champion for her international cross-country debut. Naturally, Gidey would take her talents outside of her home country, not just in cross-country, but now on the track as well. In 2015, she competed at a fairly low-key meet in Germany, where she ran a massive 5,000-meter personal best, but a month later, would compete at the World Youth Championships in the 3,000, placing fourth. 2016, on the other hand, was a complete, utter overhaul and blossoming of Gidey's true potential as a professional runner at the senior level. After breaking 15 minutes in the 5,000 at the FBK Games, she would be invited to her first ever Diamond League event in Rome. This was quite the wake-up call for Gidey, as the field she found herself in had 6 women under 1440, with one of them running 14:12, and Gidey would place in almost dead last as a result. Although she would run 14:45 in Barcelona by the end of June, which was one of the fastest 5,000-meter times ever run by an 18-year-old woman, so perhaps next year would allow her to be legitimately competitive with the veterans of the sport. Gidey's 2017 season opened up in Uganda at the World Cross Country Championships under the junior division again. This time around though, she not only made her move much earlier, but was so confident that she would formulate a 20-second gap by the end as well, taking her second World Junior title in a row. Her track debut in Shanghai would be her sophomore Diamond League showing, and instead of hanging on the back of the pack for dear life, she impressively put up a fight against Olympic silver medalist Helen Obiri and would ultimately finish in third with a new personal best of 14:36, a top 50 worldwide mark in the women's 5,000. After qualifying for her first World Championships in the same event, she continued to master this discipline by snagging another top 3 finish in Rome, running yet another personal best of 14:33, now being ranked 32nd on the all-time list, and was the 5th fastest runner going into the World Championships. This was one of the more unconventional championship races to occur. Normally these races are tactical, but the first lap was extraordinarily slow at 81 seconds and was through 800 meters in 2:40, which was 16:45 pace. Eventually, Almaz Ayana from Ethiopia forces the pack to a much more honest tempo where they're well under 70 seconds, but Gidey simply observes from the chase pack to see what other tactics will unfold. The problem, though, was that Ayana and Helen Obiri would not fall back whatsoever, creating such a gap that virtually no one could catch them. So all that was left for Gidey was likely a bronze medal at this point. Unfortunately, the experienced field would put one too many strides in front of her as the race closed in, and the prodigy would ultimately finish in 11th place. In 2018, Gidey's season was pretty desolate and a little uneventful overall. Despite only racing a handful of times, she still put up some incredible performances in the 3 and 5,000, the latter which was a 7-second personal best in Eugene, but then another 7 seconds in Rabat, bumping her all the way up to number 8 on the all-time list. Next year, of course, would see a return to the World Championships, but Gidey wanted to test her might at the World Cross Country ones first. This time, however, amongst the senior field, on a brutal 10K course on top of that. This was the first time the 10K distance had been implemented into the women's division as well, and the longest Gidey had raced before was 6 kilometers. Given she had worked her way up to world-class performances by now though, it actually didn't come as a surprise she tried to emulate the same tactics in this race as she did with the junior ones. Staying behind reigning world champion Helen Obiri the entire time, Gidey would unfortunately start to gas out about 33 minutes in, but still managed to take the bronze medal for her senior race debut. Since this was Gidey's best placement by far at an international event, there was all of a sudden potential for her to compete in the 10,000 at the World Championships. In early May, Gidey gave the 10,000 a whirl at the Ethiopian Championships, which she would handily win, and then out of nowhere dropped a blistering 820 in the 3,000 at the Pre-Classic, which was another top 10 all-time mark for her. The eventual event of choice at the Ethiopian trials, though, would ultimately be the 10,000. And after winning that as well, it was off to Doha for the youngster to see how she could compete in an event home to the most patient and calculated distance runners imaginable.
In the early evening haze, the final of the women's 10,000 meters gets underway.
Since there are no prelims for this event, Gidey was instantly in the finals with the best of the best. You had Sifan Hassan from the Netherlands, who had recently been on a tear-setting legendary mark after another, and of course, Helen Obiri, an athlete who has constantly one-upped Gidey ever since she became a senior athlete, and had just recently beat her across 10K in cross-country. Gidey quite literally stays all the way in the back for the first 10 minutes of the race, but shortly after makes her way to the front where there's now a notable separation. This is mainly due to the 71 and 72 second laps inserted by Obiri, and it's fittingly a 6-person showdown by 6K in. About 7.5K in, you can see Gidey and her teammate discussing what moves to make as they head into the final 2K. Gidey then makes the unconventional move for her to lead the race now, but the Kenyans ultimately take swift action. Gidey aggressively goes around the Kenyans once again with a monumental stride, and now it's a matter of if this second gamble will play out. The field is strung out in a matter of seconds with a 65-second lap, but Hassan is gaining such a crucial ground, and Gidey can't seem to formulate a response going into the bell lap. To outkick a mile world record holder would be a Herculean feat to pull off. And as Hassan storms away to claim her first gold medal in this event, Gidey tries to channel just enough courage to fend off anyone else behind her. And thankfully for her, she would now be a silver medalist at the world stage.
Here's the official result of the 10,000 metres. Sifan Hassan with the fastest time in the world this year. And look at that list of personal bests. Gidey, a lifetime best in second.
Gidey had upgraded from a bronze medal in cross country to now a silver medal in the 10,000. Her career trajectory up until this point was just about perfect. And the fact that she was only 21 and dominating events this mature was quite the spectacle to behold. Of course, it would have been a fantastic storyline for a prodigy to take the gold medal this early in her career, but there was so much time for her to flourish and hone her endurance skills even further. But what if she didn't want to wait any longer to get worldwide recognition? What if she just entered a road race on a whim? What if this event she entered was a distance she had never done before? And just what if she decimated the world record in the process?
En wat een tijd gaat ze maken, Dennis.
Ja, die gaat onder de 45 minuten lopen. En volgens mij vindt ze zo'n beetje bij de beste 15 atleten in dit deelnemersveld. Is legendarisch.
Ze komt ook echt ongeveer als 20ste over de finish, hoor. Dat is fantastisch. Ze loopt gewoon tussen topmannen, tussen de Japanners. Die kunnen haar gewoon niet bijhouden. Hier is de tijd, 44:21. Dat is een verbetering.
You had the best time ever.
Yes, really. I expected to world record. Then I got my own, and I am happy. So,
Congratulations.
thank you very much.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
En we zien hier Susan.
Letesenbet Gidey was officially a world record holder. While the 15K race in particular isn't super competitive in comparison to the more conventional disciplines, it was still a 1274 on the World Athletics scale, which compared to other events, would still put her pretty high up from a raw performance standpoint. It also showed just how naturally adaptive Gidey was as a runner, being able to shift between terrains and distances so seamlessly. However, this was just the very beginning of what Gidey had to offer when it came to setting groundbreaking marks, because soon enough, she wouldn't just possess a world record in a slightly obscure road event, she would go on the most brutal world record tear ever seen in the sport's history.
Very shortly, and it's going to be an absolutely massive world record from the Ethiopian over the course of the last few kilometers. Now, Letesenbet Gidey, world record for Letesenbet Gidey, unofficially 62.50. Well, that takes well over a minute off the world record, and just think about that.
Over the course of a couple years, Gidey possessed 4 separate world records. First the 15K, then the 5,000, then the 10,000, and even went as far as to shatter the half marathon record as well. This level of domination in distance running was by every definition unprecedented. The concept of a quadruple record holder had been non-existent up until this point, and Gidey now was the sole gatekeeper of these revolutionary marks at again such a young age. Unfortunately, amidst all of this at the postponed Tokyo Olympics in 2021, she would be bested by Sifan Hassan yet again, and would ultimately take the bronze to still fall shy of possessing a gold medal of any kind. In 2022, Gidey didn't exactly look to be in top form. She was still running solid times, but just couldn't seem to win a race without her Ethiopian compatriots snubbing her at the very end. Surprisingly enough though, she opted to tackle the iconic 5,000, 10,000 meter double at the 2022 World Championships. By the time these games arrived though, Gidey had only raced 3 times, none of which she had won. So there was a great deal of concern of whether or not Gidey was simply a time trial specialist that could still win medals in the end, or that she really had it in her to become the best in the world when it came down to the most pivotal showdown of her career.
That is Letesenbet Gidey. Silver in this event in Doha, bronze last year. The world record holder. The final of the women's 10,000 meters.
Nothing had changed in terms of the competition in the 10,000. Hassan was looking to continue her streak, and Oidor had a chip on her shoulder to scrape off in this event too. Other talented up-and-comers would also threaten medal positions as the wildcards as well. In essence, Gidey needed the race of her lifetime if she wanted to win. The pace isn't fast, but it's certainly an honest one overall. And Gidey sits in about 6th place to stay in position in case any sneaky moves are thrown out. Right after the 20-minute mark, Ethiopia's Eugene makes the gesture to Gidey that they need to move up front. And so Gidey obliges, and the 71s begin to click off with a sub-70 sneaking in there too, with Taye helping to lead portions of the race as well. Oidor in the meantime will be observing right between the duo to see what they're up to. 25 minutes in, Oidor tries to dismantle the Ethiopians' plans by taking the front, but is quickly denied by the duo as they refuse to let anyone else dictate how the last couple kilometers will unfold. Heading into the last lap, it's Gidey and Oidor going stride for stride, but Taye regains composure to aid her Ethiopian teammate to bring every medal they possibly can home. There really was no clear decider even with less than half a lap left. By all accounts, it was going to be down to the absolute wire, where the gold medal would ultimately be separated by just 8 single milliseconds.
Is it going to be her turn? She looks over her shoulder. Oidor's closing. She drifts out. Letesenbet Gidey by the narrowest of margins turns silver from Doha into gold here in Eugene.
Letesenbet Gidey was now a world champion. After 2 bronze medals and a heartbreaking silver, the final major accolade of possessing a world gold medal had now been fulfilled. Putting up quite a fight in the 5,000, Gidey would not have the wheels to outkick those who were much more fresh for the event, but it would still be an Ethiopian, AlphaSigma, to capture her own gold medal too. By now we've established that Gidey's range has virtually no bounds, as from the 3,000 to the half marathon, her times are in most cases the best of the very best. But what if she took it one step further? What if something as daunting as the marathon got her attention? And just how fast would she run if she experimented with such a task?
So she's definitely someone that likes that slow burn. And, you know, it's about being smart. I think, you know, the unknown, obviously.
I think we're expecting her to pick up the pace because they have started cautiously, and obviously one sign of that is that she's not the only woman in this leading women's group.
There on the screen, there we go, look at that, 30 kilometres. We are now 5 seconds inside world record pace. The tables have been turned subtly in this race, but what is amazing, we've got 2 athletes inside world record pace.
Gemadou Degefa, who will have been disappointed at the performance of his leading male athlete, Tamret Tola, came here with high expectations.
Still, what a debut, sub 2:17 in her first marathon, amazing.
And you can see what it's taken out of her. I think those last 10 kilometres.
2:16:49 would not be the world record, but would be the fastest women's debut ever seen in the marathon, and would immediately put her at the number 6 spot in the all-time list. Even though it wasn't the world record that many had hoped for, it was still a fantastic performance, especially for a debut, quite literally the best of its kind. The marathon is a race that needs to be pristinely executed in order to maximize your actual running potential, and perhaps the stars didn't quite align for Gidey to check all the boxes she wanted to that day. One thing for certain though, was that she undoubtedly had a future in this event, and that the possibility of going into more marathons was going to linger in the back of her mind. For now, let's revisit a sport we haven't seen Gidey actually compete in for a few years.
We'll see how they approach it. The Women's Open race off and racing.
The 2023 World Athletics Cross Country Championships was Gidey's first cross-country race in over 4 years. Given she had raced a marathon back in December, this only gave her about 2 months to recover and prepare for what is a wildly different race from the distance of the event to the very terrain she'd be running on. The course this year was no joke, and the temps were a bit oppressive as well. Nevertheless, you had a trio of Kenyan runners trying to break Gidey and a teammate of hers the entire time, but this quickly turns into a trio of 2 Kenyans and Gidey as they head into the final lap of this course. Eventually, it's Gidey and Kenyan Beatrice Chebet, as this will be the one-on-one clash many were waiting to see unfold. Chebet actually had the slight upper hand in this scenario due to her much more extensive background and experience in cross-country. But I mean, Gidey's the reigning 10,000 meter champion and is no stranger to placing well in this event. Around 30 minutes in, Gidey makes the move to pull away from Chebet and manages to solidify a 3-second lead just within a single minute. However, Gidey appears pretty tense. Soon enough, during a wider view of the race, Chebet's cadence is significantly faster than Gidey's, and we're approaching the final turn. Not only would Chebet gain substantial ground in just a matter of seconds, but there was a chance that Gidey might not have just not gotten second, but some were worried that she wasn't going to finish the race at all.
The race is never over in a cross country until that final finish. Yes, she had it. She was home and home.
Within meters of the finish line, Gidey's body had completely shut down, causing her to temporarily faint until she was picked up by her coaches and would jog it in for 4th place. Sadly, since the coaches made contact with Gidey, she would actually be disqualified, but the team title still would have gone to Kenya regardless if she had finished in 2nd. Thankfully, she had recovered quite well from this and was simply looking forward to her next competitive endeavor, which was actually a world record attempt. In June 2023, Gidey made the return to the track with her season debut occurring in Paris. By now, you're either familiar or have seen these fancy little LEDs around the track called wave lights that have aided in getting Gidey on pace to run some of her world record times. However, unlike her last couple records, someone was contesting her for a change. With the green wave light shown here set at 14:10, Kenyan Faith Kipyegon, someone who had only raced the 5,000 back in 2015, would stay ahead of the lights with Gidey as far as 4K in. Nevertheless, Gidey makes her classic move and remains in charge with 2 laps to go. And it was clear that with a solid closer, that the record could fall here and now. The thing was, that would happen, but perhaps not in the way Gidey or anyone in that stadium could have predicted that day.
records. And in doing so, beats the previous world record holder, Gidey, the last lap.
Gidey's 5,000 meter record had fallen by a little over a second. Faith Kipyegon ran a killer last lap to not only outkick Gidey, but to snag her record alongside too. While certainly a historic race to witness given two women had run under 14:10 in the same race, Gidey now had a reason to train even harder in this event. Although, the 5,000 was actually not even a concern for her this year. She was going to put all her eggs in one basket to try to defend her 10,000 meter title at the 2023 World Championships, set to take place in Budapest.
Ethiopia 1-2, then Kenya with Kamai, and then the US with Alicia Munson. She rocked and shocked the world, or maybe she didn't, by winning the London Marathon in her very first one, and here she comes. If I can, it's to the line, she falls! Sifan Hassan had gold in her hands, and she falls with the wild scrap with Sagai of Ethiopia, and she went down. Letesenbet Gidey is there to console her.
Even though Sifan Hassan would suffer a tragic fall within the last 50 meters of the race, Gidey's teammate, Gudaf Sagai, would be the one to take the 10,000 meter title for her first time ever, leaving Gidey with yet another silver medal. Gidey attempted to break her own world record in the 5,000 again in September that year in Berlin, but would fall short, running an insane time still of 14:08.79. By the end of the year, she would return to the marathon scene where she would run the New York Marathon, but again would be cursed with yet another runner-up finish, unsurprisingly to Hellen Obiri, ending her season on a still impressive yet bittersweet note overall. Letesenbet Gidey is in an interesting spot right now. Her dominance within the women's distance running scene isn't anywhere near as prevalent as she displayed in the early 2020s, and her current world records could be threatened relatively soon as well. Despite this though, it would be beyond disingenuous to assume that she's going anywhere anytime soon, or that she doesn't stand a chance to obtain another gold medal. Her lowest placement in any event since 2020 was a 5th place finish in the 5,000 at the 2022 World Championships, which was right off of her 10,000 meter gold just a week before. This is the biggest outlier in her career, as she has never placed below 3rd since 2020, and is one of the few hyper-elites who are juggling road marathons and track at the same time at such a high level. Gidey is simply entering a new phase in her career, and if that means a couple temporary 2nd place finishes before she acclimates to this new routine, we may see a refined, flourished version of herself that will likely perpetuate greatness so long as she's competing with the very best and staying healthy as well. Gidey's ascent to distance running stardom also has a much deeper rooted reasoning for why it's as impressive and emotionally compelling as it is. During the absolute height of her career, Tigray, the region of Ethiopia Gidey grew up in, had been under siege and was suffering the harsh repercussions of a civil war, with the tragic losses of many athletes like her in the process. This meant that any contact between her and her family was virtually impossible. At this point, Gidey had been sending money back home to support her family, but this was simply not possible, leaving her family not only without contact from their own daughter, but were now likely impoverished and in danger. From late 2020 to late 2022, nearly the exact timeline where Gidey had single-handedly rewritten the history books in almost every major distance running event, she had to deal with the complete inaccessibility to her family that was trapped within a civil war zone and had to emotionally muster up the courage to keep fighting her own battles in the hopes that the ones back home would resolve by the time she could contact her loved ones once again. By January 2023, Gidey would get the chance to reunite with her family as the tides of war slowly started to simmer, giving her a sense of clarity after years of separation and uncertainty. Now that it's 2024, the Olympic year will leave the versatile prodigy with a dilemma. Will she commit to the roads to prepare for the marathon in Paris? Will she seek revenge yet again in the 10,000 and focus on that alone? Or will she reattempt the double like in 2022? Given Gidey's resume and resilience, it's genuinely a tough one to call at the moment. But whatever route she chooses, it'll likely be one that results in a great level of success. But exactly how much success is something we will have to wait to find out. Until then, this has been the story of Letesenbet Gidey, and thanks for watching.